Welcome to Haunting Live Podcast, a place where we bring a new paranormal guest each episode to share their journey and experiences.
My name's Kim Dennis. I'm known as Clairvoyant Kim as well too. It's kind of my radio name. I'm a medium, and I'm a psychic. So I channel people who are crossed over, your loved ones, plus give people insight into their lives as well.
Visit our sponsor, the most gifted psychics. Call 866-228-2883 and mention code word HauntingLive to receive 10 minutes for just $10. 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Hello, Kim. Welcome to Haunting Live Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Hi, Trevor. Thanks so very much for inviting me.
Well, it's wonderful to have you on the show. And first of all, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
My name's Kim Dennis. I'm known as Clairvoyant Kim as well too. It's kind of my radio name. I'm a medium, and I'm a psychic. So I channel people who are crossed over, your loved ones, plus give people insight into their lives as well too. So, yeah, I try to connect people with their loved ones. Just helps a lot with grief, So I kind of narrow that gap between this world and that world, so that people who have lost their loved ones kind of feel them close and don't feel the loss quite as much. And plus, give them insight into their life as well. And if their life's going in a direction that they don't particularly like, I can help them with the spiritual tools to put them on the path to manifesting what it is that they want.
Wonderful. Sounds like you have a wide range of services that you do for people. So,
well, that's kind of the two main reasons people come to me, is they want to contact their loved ones who are crossed over and their life isn't going in the direction that they want it to. Yeah, and want some insight on how to make that. I can't make anything happen in anybody's life, not yet. Anyways, I'm working on it. but I can help put them in the direction. Say, this is what's coming if you keep on this path. If that's what you want, great. Keep doing what you're doing. If not, this is the tools and this is what you need to put you on the path to what you do want.
So what do you more classify yourself as, then? Mediumship, or do you do psychic work?
Medium. Well, I think, I don't know. I think all kind of mediums are psychic. Maybe not all psychics are mediums. There's lots of, they call me Clairvoyant Kim because it sounds good with Kim. And clairvoyant is a French word meaning clear seeing. So you just see a clear picture. Medium part is channeling and picking up your loved ones. So that just takes it literally to a higher level as well too. So I more or less say that I am a medium. And with that comes the psychic part, clairvoyant part, or whatever, just seeing a clearer picture of people's lives.
Definitely goes both ways. I think it works together with mediumship and psychic together. So it just depends on which end do you go with more, I guess. So
I always channel somebody, even if anybody who comes for reading, I always channel somebody. A lot of people say, I've got nobody who's passed. I'm like, oh, we all do, whether it's a grandparent or something like that. So even if they're more coming for insight into their life, I always channel somebody. I always channel a few people, actually, is what it is. But it may lean towards more what's going on in your life, as opposed to maybe, is my mom here? Is she okay? And stuff like that. And I give people a lot of reassurance. A lot of people worry about their loved ones once they cross over, which is the last thing you want to do. Is worry about them. I've never encountered a spirit who was in a bad place, who was still ill in a wheelchair. Even mental health, we get that physical things get healed because you can't take your body, right? But emotional things get healed. People are suicide or have mental health issues, those things get healed as well too. And that can be very reassuring for our loved ones who are here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes people don't know sometimes what they want to ask when they come for a reading for that kind of service. So it kind of comes out when you do that too. So
it does. It's sort of a bit. I always say, all I really need is yes or no, but you can ask me any question that you like. Yeah, any question. So I kind of open that door, but I usually just start and let me go off here. Yeah, and just see what comes about. And then from there, some people have questions and some people don't. So yeah. And then just as the reading progresses, other different things come up, and I try to answer things like not even how your life is going and if your loved ones are close by, but just what happens when we die. What is an old soul? Have some people had more lives than others? What are the signs that our loved ones are around us? Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. When they visit us in our sleep, are they real? What's the difference between a nightmare, a dream, and a visit in your sleep? So I kind of help people sort out their feelings about that. I think every soul goes, this is my spin, exactly when they're supposed to. It doesn't mean it's the right time for you to lose your loved one. Right. And I try to help them with that as well too. So it's okay, like, to sort out your feelings, that it's okay to, if they had to go, that usually happens with younger people, obviously, if they had to go, we want it to be all right for them, but that doesn't mean it was the right time for you to lose them. So, and a lot of people think if they get hung up on that, well, it doesn't mean you wanted them to go. It is what it is. Yeah, but I just help them get to a better place with it, yeah, and help them heal as well too, you know, for their loved ones to be able to hear that their mom was watching them do a particular thing that day, or they're going for this or doing whatever. I mean, it just gives validation that you don't really die. You know, that person that always feels like the young you on the inside, that person you have the inner dialogue with, the person that always feels young, your soul always feels young, right? Whether in a body like you and I, Trevor, or outside a body like maybe your grandpa, right? That's why as we get older, we always say, oh, I feel like that same young person on the inside. That's your soul. That's the real you. It doesn't age and it doesn't die either. And that's the part that transcends and that I connect with. We connect with it ourselves. That's the person you have the inner dialogue with, right? And once you leave your body, then that soul survives. And that's the person, for lack of a better word, that I talk to. The real you. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of stuff comes out though when you do a reading that you're not expecting sometimes as well. So if that
Oh,
person
yeah.
didn't know they had an inner soul, that might come out as well, and then they
It
might
is.
be
And
more
it's
open. So
right, and that really makes it tangible. It's like, yeah, like everybody can say that unless you're like 14. Like nobody in their 20s says, "Oh, I feel like the same young person on the inside." But yeah, as you get older, like anybody's like, yeah, you know what? I get that. I feel that. And I can see that. I'm like, couldn't you feel that when I said that? Because I try to make these things a little bit more tangible. So that person that you always feels young on the inside, you know, and I always say, you know, if you had a grandpa that was in his 80s and he visits you and they always come in a form you're going to recognize. It doesn't mean they're in that form anymore. One of the few famous people I channeled was Christopher Reeve. Now I'm in Calgary, and the first Superman was filmed in Calgary. And yeah, one of his good friends came for a reading. So if Chris Reeve ain't in a wheelchair, nobody is. If Superman's flying around, so yeah.
it's really interesting. So how did this all start for you when you were a
Yeah,
child and younger? Did something happen that you went into this field, or did you have an
it sure
experience,
did.
or
It sure did. I had an out of body experience at 13. I had my first one at 13. I came home from track and field practice, had a nap on my bed about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I left my body. And I could see myself sleeping on the bed. I wasn't scared, oddly enough, because I was very young. I never thought it never occurred to me I was going to die. And I would just look at myself sleeping, and I was as peaceful as anything. But I felt myself pulled towards the corner of my bedroom, and I just sort of floated around my room. My mom eventually opened my door and said, you know, supper's ready or something. And I came back into myself. And that was the first of almost daily, nightly, depending if I had a nap, out of body experiences that I had. And I mean, I had lots of them for like 10 years. And honestly, I didn't go very far with most of them. But a couple times I did go to a higher place, which must be heaven. I don't know. There's no other name for it. So yeah, and they stopped when I was 23. I had a child then. And then I had really had nothing for about 2 years. And then when she was a toddler, I went back to work, and the intuition phase kicked in after that. And then I was picking up all kinds of information that I had wasn't really any huge information, but I had no business knowing. Yeah, and it just kind of grew from there.
so how did you focus on that after you had your first experience? And was it something that you continued to do? You said you had more
Out of
after.
what experience? I had
Um,
them. Yeah, I had them
did you
almost
focus on it, or
guaranteed.
was it like something that you?
No, no, it was
Yeah.
never. I was like, they started when I was 13, right? So I wasn't an adult or anything like that. No, it was never an intention that I had in my physical being. No, it was just something that happened. Like reminding that I was a teenager for most of this, I had lots of naps, right? So guaranteed if I had a nap, because it's a lighter sleep, I guess, boom, I would leave my body. But almost every night I would, like I said, on some level, and I didn't go far. I remember traveling about my room for sure, my house. It's funny, it was always really quiet, but I remember I have a younger brother, going into his room and seeing him sleeping, and I could hear his fish tanks. I have no idea why, but I could hear his fish tank. Yeah. And then, but a couple times I did go to a higher place where I did see heaven. And it's what you hear. It's like everything wonderful. You know, it's like peace and harmony and unconditional love and just everything the way it's supposed to. Everybody knows they're supposed to be there. And you know what the cool thing is? Well, it was all cool, but I saw colors that don't exist here. I can't recall them, Trevor, but I know I saw them. It's the weirdest thing. And I can almost go there to the feeling, you know, if I meditate a little bit, but they're like, yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's for the other side. But I know the feeling of seeing it was the coolest thing. And I saw a lot of things. I saw my grandparents there, my dad's parents, and my grandmother had only been gone about 6 months at that point. And they were lovely people, but they had been in a nursing home for about 2 years. So when I saw them, they looked like my elderly grandparents, but they weren't sick anymore. Yeah, so that's kind of some of the things. So I learned really quick. You don't worry about anybody who's crossed over. right? You don't, and nobody appeared sick or disabled or struggling on any level whatsoever. Yeah. Another thing I saw, I peeked into this room where I saw it was a classroom and it looked like it had a bunch of, remember those TV trays, tables? But anyways, with screens in them. And I was kind of told intuitively that all these souls had just returned back to the other side and they were reviewing their life. And that's where my life flashed before my eyes comes from. And they were doing a life review. And not only were they watching it, they were feeling everything that they made other people feel. And that was part of their experience of crossing over. Fast forward to the, I don't know, the late 90s when I was home with my kids and watching Oprah. Betty Eadie was on there and she wrote a book called Embraced by the Light. And she had a near death experience during, you may have read her book, during I think, open heart surgery. Anyway, she saw that same room. I remember it like stopped me cold in the middle. I was like, oh my gosh. And I hadn't forgotten about it, but it was like immediate validation. Yeah.
I have heard that from different mediums and people that have crossed or had experiences crossing
Yes,
over like that and coming back, saying there is some type of life review after you get to a
there
certain
is.
point.
And
So,
that's, yes, somebody must have experienced something. That's where my life flashed before my eyes when you almost get hit by a car or you have a near miss or something like that. Somebody's experienced that.
do you have any more detail on that? Can you expand on that at all? Of
On
your,
my visit up there?
yeah, what you experienced while you were across?
Yeah, just I saw my grandparents, like I said, and it was just sort of I just sort of like was observing, just like it was almost like I was remote viewing just what it was like up there. And like I said, all I could feel was like peace and harmony. And everybody knew that they were there exactly when they needed to be. You know, I believe in what they say that we all come here to learn. I think Earth is a big school. We're all taking different classes. We're all learning different lessons. There's no mistakes in life, only lessons. But lessons are repeated till you get them, and learning never ends. And when you can't learn anything more, you're called home. You're called home. And I wonder too, why do babies make all the effort to come here and then cross over? But that's all their little soul needed this time around. Or why my friend's mom's laying in a nursing home at 97, waiting to go. Anytime I visit Anna, she says, if you've come here to tell me I still got more to learn, I'm going to throw something at you. But I get it, but the universe, the earth still needs her. But I did, but I all I knew is that you don't worry about anybody who crosses, that there's something more than this. Most of us believe this. I don't, whether you believe in what I do or you're religious or not, that there's something more. But I can, based on my own experience, I'm like, and you don't worry about anybody who's there. Yeah. Yeah, with grief and stuff, right? People do, but don't add on the burden if they're well or if they're happy or whatever. They know that they're supposed to. We forget everything at birth. It's sort of the dance between remembering and forgetting is what we're doing here. And when you cross over, the lights come back on. Right. So that's you're like, oh right. I remember this is where I come from. I was off to school for a number of years and now I'm back home. And you connect with everybody who you loved here, who went before you, obviously, and even ones you don't expect, the obvious ones like maybe parents and grandparents. Maybe you had a great neighbor or a coach or teacher or something like that. They're going to be there to welcome you back over to the other side as well too.
So after your experiences there, what was your next step in your mediumship journey then? What drew
So
you
yeah,
into
so
more mediumship side of things?
yeah. So after that, that was, like I said, that was about 10 years. I had my daughter and I had nothing for about 2 years. I don't know if I was a sleep deprived new mom or what it was. And then I was a bank teller for Canada Trust, went back a couple evenings a week, and then the intuition phase kicked in. And it was almost, I couldn't get away from it. Like never in my life did I say I wanted to be a medium or a psychic. It's just, yeah. So it was daunting. I was just picking up all kinds of useless information. I used to work in a bank in a mall. I used to write down the names of people, Patty, and then she'd walk in the door, or Val would walk in. My coworkers would go like, how did you do that? I was like, I don't know. Right. Or I'd be talking to a friend and I knew that she cut her hand that morning cutting an orange. Or I talked to someone and was like, who's Fred? And why is he like 6'2"? And she's like, that was my grandpa. He was 6'3" and his name was Fred. And I'm like, he's like standing behind you. And that just progressed over so many years and got stronger and stronger. And I thought, I'm the girl with something extra and stuff like that. But it just got to be so strong and so daunting that I was just like, people were saying, you got something going on here. You've got something. So I just I started doing a little bit of readings and messages for people, and people were liking them and responding well to them. And it just kind of gave me the, I guess, the courage to keep going on with this work. I wanted to speed it up at some point, so I phoned a radio station one day and got on with them. And within 2 minutes, I was Clairvoyant Kim walking in the radio station. And I had a TV show, and I've been just running with it ever since.
How's your experience on the show been then? Like you said, you walked in, they gave it to you
I
right away. Was it why like openly received to do that work
Well,
there?
when I
Or?
walked into, well, I phoned a radio station. I had what it was, my business was moving along, but I wanted to speed it up, right? So I wanted to quit my day job so I could do this full time. So I don't know, just like everything, it just came to me. It was like phone a radio station. So I phoned a radio station, one I didn't even listen to. They called me back and said, "Yeah, we'd love to have you on Friday." So this was my first media anything. Walked in the door and they said, "Oh, we were trying to promote you and we didn't know what to call you, psychic Kim or medium Kim." So we thought clairvoyant Kim. So that's what I was saying. So, like, from the 2 minutes of walking in the first radio station, I was clairvoyant Kim. So, yeah, and that's sort of been my handle, I guess, ever since. So it's stuck, and I'm like, sounds good to me. So yeah, sounds good to me. So I like it. It's a little bit French. So clairvoyant Kim. So yeah, so that's how the name came about. And then I've been doing. Then another radio station picked me up, and then Val Fortney from the Calgary Herald did an amazing story on me in the paper. She came for a reading, did a story, and it changed my life. I got a TV show after that. So.
Do you still do that nowadays, the radio and
No, I
TV, or
don't. No,
just
I
your own?
don't. No,
No.
no, I don't. No, but I still do lots of radio stuff and doing more podcasts like yourself, and I'm doing and I do private readings, group readings. Yeah.
The paranormal can happen at any time, so that's why our Etsy store is always open. Get your paranormal items from cleansing to protection to attraction, all available now on our Etsy store. Search Haunting Live. What do you provide for services day to day for your clients?
Yeah, so for the most part, private readings. Private readings. So people come to me, I do them in my home in Calgary. I have an old house built in 1888, so it's kind of cool. So I do private readings here, and I'll go on location, sort of around Alberta and stuff like that, to different places, and I'll do little groups. I do different kinds of groups. Like I always say, families should sit together. If there's two sisters and a mom coming together, don't sit separately, sit together, right? Because y'all share family. By the time I read for the third person separately, I know so much, right? So but I always say friends should not sit together because you don't want your friend's whole family coming through in your readings. So I do groups like that. And plus I do event groups as well too. I've got one coming on October 29th at Fort Calgary and in Calgary. And it's about 100 people. And then I'll give messages and just talk about stuff like this and answer people's questions about life after death and and stuff like that. So yeah.
Can you share some experiences that you've had that you would like to talk about, either that you've
Oh,
had with clients or that have happened to yourself that are really interesting or
yeah.
different that you want to talk
Yeah.
about?
Well, yeah, well, just for the most part, just people who are crossed over, like they come through, they'll give me evidence, they'll sort of tell me things that they did that day or they've been doing it the last week. And that really sort of validates that stuff. There's no way I can look it up and stuff like that. That really validates what I'm doing. This isn't so much, this is more a psychic thing, not really a channeling thing. But when I was a kid living in Scarborough, Ontario, for 1 year when I was in grade 3, I had a spectacular teacher for half a year. My parents divorced. I mean, my parents were separated and I was living with my grandmother. And it wasn't the best year for me, but I had this most amazing teacher, Mrs. Burgess. And I only had her for half a year. Now, keep in mind, I was 8 years old. So all I knew her name was Mrs. Burgess. I didn't know her first name or anything. But after Christmas, I knew she was expecting a baby and she moved to California. That's all I knew. And I used to write to her for about, I don't know, a year or so. And then whatever, so all I knew was Mrs. Burgess from California. And I just thought, she was such an amazing teacher. My dad was a high school teacher. I would just love to reach out to her and tell her what she meant to me. So one night, blah, 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 I'm on Google and I put in California, Burgess, California, 750 of them come up. I picked one of Bill Burgess, and what do you think? That was my teacher. I left a message. She phoned me back 2 weeks later, and it was her. Yeah, and I talked to her. She was never a teacher again. And the irony is, a year later, almost to the day, she passed away from a brain aneurysm. So I was able to reach out to her and tell her what a fantastic teacher she was. So. Oh, so there was a missing boy. Oh, you like this one, Ontario? There was two missing boys that I do help with missing persons, usually with families because the police don't really listen too much. But and there's a little boy, Eric Larksford, that's been missing in Ontario. I think it's Kenora, but don't hold me to it. Him and his buddy went missing years ago. I think in the 80s or something like that. And I was doing some work with Missing Children's of Canada out of Calgary, and Rhonda, who was running it at the time, she got a hold of me. I had a meeting with her and she fired off a whole bunch of missing kids and stuff. And this Eric, I was like, oh, it was suspected that it was Eric and John, that John's father had murdered them. And I said, I don't think so. I said, is there gravel pits or something in that area? And she said, actually, there is. And I said, I think one boy fell in and the other one went to save him. And she said, really? And I said, yeah. And I said, long story short, I said, if I'm right about that, there's something really special about John's bicycle. And she says, what do you mean? And I said, I don't know. I said, not like special needs or anything, but there was something really special about John's bike. And if I'm right about that, they're in the, by my standards, they're in the gravel pit. So I don't know who Rhonda called from Missing Children's, but anyway, she phoned me the next morning, like at 8:30 in the morning. She goes, guess what? And I'm like, what? She goes, that John kid won a bike the day before he went missing. I like, bingo, that's it. I said, my theory is they're in the gravel pit. So yeah, that's it. So she didn't even know about that, right? She didn't even know about that. So that sort of verified that. So there was a girl that had been coming to me for years for a reading. And because her husband had passed away in an accident. And I didn't realize until about, I don't know, 5 readings in, I was like, are you adopted? And she says, actually, I am. And I said, that's never come up before. Yeah. So I said to her, I said, I picked a bunch. I said, I think you know who your birth mom is, but you don't know who your birth dad is. She goes, that's right. So I came up with his name. I'm going to make one up, Tim Fraser, right? I'm going to make up a name, Tim Fraser. And she says, well, I have no idea. I said, if you send away for adoption records, 7 pages, second last page, his name is there. And now, in all fairness, she's a little short redhead, right? And I said, you look just like him. He's a little short red-haired guy. And I said, and I can see him behind a big truck. Right. And I said, I don't know. Do you know anybody who's a fireman? And she said, no. So, and this was in the paper, so I can kind of talk about this. So anyways, I didn't think about it again. She goes home, sends away for adoption records, comes back, second last page. His name's Tim Fraser. And guess what? He's the fire chief in Calgary. Yeah. He didn't even know about it. So yeah. So got the name, what he did and everything. He came to me for a ride. He still owes me a ride on the fire truck, all bells and whistles. I haven't cashed in on that yet. But he came to me, it was like, he didn't even know about her. He didn't even know about her. So that was really kind of heartwarming. So yeah. So but really the heart of my work is like somebody coming with their child who has passed over and saying, you know what, there's a little girl that I read for her mom, because her daughter was murdered here in Calgary. I was able to tell what she said to her, what she sent with her in the casket, what they did to celebrate her life, what she did that morning, that she spilt a jug of milk all over the floor, like that kind of stuff. It's like, there's no way that I would have any way of knowing. And you just see, especially if they're in front of me, obviously, that, that there is some healing, that takes place. So, kids see them all the time. They're the coolest things. Kids see them all the time. Children 3 and under to be specific. Yeah. Somewhere around 4, it tends to fade. I don't know if it's because they're so fresh from the other side. But it's funny. I had a friend show up with her granddaughter on the 24th of December once, because I had some Christmas presents for her. Little Ruby was about 3.5. And they came in my door and they visited for about 10 minutes. I gave her a gift, sent her on her way. So my girlfriend phoned me when she got home and she goes, you'll never guess what Ruby said to me when she got in the car. I'm like, what? And she said, she asked if Kim knew all those people in her house. I was home alone. And she was about 3. Yeah. And she was like, oh my goodness. I said, that's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, it's weird you get validation from different sources, right? So it could be
It
through your readings, through the client, but it could be through somebody else afterwards. You just don't know.
Afterwards as well, too. Yeah, and I do get a lot of feedback afterwards, because I do futuristic stuff as well, too, right? And then they were like, oh my gosh, you were right. I had a woman, actually, it was fantastic. She looked like it was having a very poor diagnosis about cancer. And I was like, look, I don't want to get your hopes up, but you know what? I don't get that. I said, I don't think it's that. I think I see it shrinking and blah, blah, blah. And I told her what I saw happening. She messaged me actually this morning and said I was bang on right. They can't find it anymore. I'm like, hello. And I always tell people to never say you're sick. Never be in denial about your situation, but always do it the Irish way. Say, I'm healing. I am in perfect health. That's the kind of thing that I help people, because the other thing is words and thoughts become things, right? And I always try to help people. You got to watch how you talk to yourself, because the universe is listening all the time, right? So you never want to say that I'm sick unless you want to be, right? And I always tell them that the universe has no sense of humor. It's very literal. It doesn't understand if you want something or not. So I really try to help people, sort of how they talk to themselves. But with this girl, yeah, I was like, I'm not getting that at all. I said, I think the doctors are wrong, and they were. And I'm sure they're happy about that as well, too.
One thing that you want to be right on is somebody improving their health, not getting worse. So
And it's just like, yeah, it's just like if you had no money, you wouldn't keep saying I'm broke. So if you're sick, why would you keep saying I'm sick, right? You want to say I'm healing. I am in perfect health. Thank you for my healing. That's why, thoughts become things. That's why you hear about, I swear, this kind of making this up, but every third person I channel, I think, has had cancer, right? And it's just like cancer is a deep resentment. I try to get people to let go of stuff that they've been hanging on for a long time. And your body talks to you as well, too. I help, I don't know all the body parts, but some of them, and I kind of help them. It's like if you've had a sore back for a long time, you're carrying a burden. If you have bowel trouble, you're holding on to crap. If you have lung trouble with your lungs, there's grief. I'm not saying that there are other things connected, but that's why I hear a lot of time. I get a lot of these people come to me and go, oh my gosh, my brother passed away from cancer. He exercised, he was fit, he ate well. And I'm like, yeah, but what was going on in his mind? Right? Because it's all connected. And then they're like, well, and then as soon as they're like, well, yeah, he struggled with this and that, and he couldn't let go of, this and that. I'm like, yeah, and that's why he got sick. It's all connected. So you want to do what the doctors say, but you also want to step back and go, okay, what brought me to this place? Because you don't just get sick. You don't get a headache because you have an aspirin deficiency, right? Right. So yeah. So I help people with that, with their health and their well-being. Because if you just do what the doctors say, I mean, sure, but here we go. But if you encompass all of it, your chances of recovering and healing are so much bigger.
what have you been working on lately? And do you have anything that you want to talk
Yeah,
about that is coming up for you?
Yeah, well, of course, it's October, so I'm going to do in Calgary. I'm doing an event at Fort Calgary on October 29th at 7 p.m. You can go onto my website at clairvoyantkim.com or my Facebook at Clairvoyant Kim, and the information is there, or you can shoot me a message. I'm going to do a little group reading. It's just fun for Halloween. It's funny. I try to take the paranormal out of it so people feel more comfortable with their loved ones who are passed, but you got to be fun with this stuff as well, too, right? Yeah, you do. So yeah, so people, and I do private readings as well too. I do private readings, so if people want to reach out, yeah, my Facebook and my website.
Okay, wonderful. We'll be sure to put the website link here in the description below so people can click that for you and go check you out and hopefully book a reading with you and see what you do. So
yeah, well, I'll give you a free reading anytime you want.
Yeah, wonderful. I'll take you up on that.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks for being here, Kim. I appreciate you telling us about what you do, your background, and some stories that you wanted to share with us today. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'll come back on anytime you want me.
Sounds wonderful.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Trevor.
Miss one of our episodes? Replay our episodes on Rhode Island Broadcasting. Show your support for Haunting Live by supporting our broadcast partner, Rhode Island Broadcasting. Find them on YouTube. The paranormal can happen at any time, so that's why our Etsy store is always open. Get your paranormal items from cleansing to protection to attraction, all available now on our Etsy store. Search Haunting Live.